Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. My camera didn't want to come on. Good morning or good afternoon, evening, everyone. It is NJ, and I am here with an amazing guest today. Her name is Anissa Hudak, and you'll find out a little bit more about her in a moment. But you guys, it is going to be a really great and actually informational show. This is actually a topic that I actually like to talk about because we're all experiencing this and a lot of people don't even realize. But we'll get more into that in just a minute, you guys. Again, welcome to Boss Radio Live. We'll get started. Share the episode. It's going to be a really good one. It's Boss Radio Live with NJ, your three-dimensional podcast. Baltimore, Maryland. I love my city. Wow. You have to have balance. Mother's Day extravaganza event being held by LUC Lois Butler Colbert. Come meet me today at the Spirit Fest. I want to hear what you have to say. Again, welcome to Boss Radio Live, everyone. Welcome to Boss Radio Live. I'm your host, NJ, and this is where he is the boss of me. So, as I said, I have a really great guest today, Anissa Hudak. And if you have never heard of her, I'm just going to give you a little information about her, and then we are going to get into the show because it's going to be a really interesting one. As a yoga therapist and founder of the Trauma Healing Yoga Therapy Program, Anissa Hudak guides others in the use of effective science-based yoga therapy for the management and healing of symptoms relating to PTSD and trauma. Anissa empowers people who want to control their PTSD, not allow it to control them. Anissa has dedicated her efforts to working with women who have been sexually traumatized to help them heal their PTSD and other trauma-related issues with yoga therapy. As a survivor of trauma herself, Anissa understands the challenges these women face and helps them navigate their personal healing journeys. Yes, so everyone, please welcome my guest for today's show, Anissa Hudak.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on today.
I am so glad that you could join me. Anissa, I'm really excited to talk about this because we have done a few shows talking about trauma, mental health, and things like that. And so I was really interested in this topic because you're using yoga in a way to help people with trauma. And I find that great and amazing. And I want to hear more about it. And I'm sure our guests do as well. So I want to hop right into it. I want to start first with talking a bit about trauma itself. So for people who may not know what trauma really means, PTSD, what that really means, could we talk about that for a minute?
Sure. I don't think a lot of people really understand. I think they see the symptoms of it, which is, depression, anxiety, maybe some anger issues, lack of emotional control, hypervigilance, always being on guard. And they think that that's what PTSD is. And it's actually, those are symptoms. PTSD starts in the body first. It is a malfunction, if you will, of the central nervous system. And so it starts in the body first. And that's why we're able to utilize yoga therapy to actually help reset that central nervous system, to take people out of fight and flight, fawn and freeze, and back into homeostasis.
Wow, homeostasis. Look, I'm okay. So for those of us who are like homeostasis, what does she mean? Tell us what.
Uh, Normal, whatever normal is.
That's a good way to put it. Okay. So thank you for, really talking about that, because you're absolutely right. I've worked with like veterans before, and that's kind of where people see the PTSD thing, but it's not just our veterans. It's your everyday person can be experiencing PTSD. And I know it's from different things. I know, we're going to talk about sexual trauma, which is one, but also, it could be child abuse, maybe mental or physical abuse, different things. A lot of things can kind of throw you in a trauma. So,
Car accident, seeing someone die, being
mm,
mugged. I mean, quite frankly,
mm,
any of us living this human experience right now have had something that has traumatized us.
yeah,
So we're all walking around with a little bit of PTSD. It's just about, how much does it affect you and how high functioning are you with it?
wow. And you yourself actually have a personal story with trauma, and I really wanted to talk a little more about that and a little more about you yourself as well before we get started talking about everything else.
Well, I am a two-time rape survivor, which is why I work with the women that I work with. And it's not easy. However, it's something I do. I deal with myself every day, and so who better to work with those women than myself?
I totally agree. So, with your, you going through that and kind of finding your way, what actually made you connect the trauma and yoga?
Well, I started taking yoga teacher training classes, and I had no desire to ever teach. I only wanted to take it so I could keep myself safe on my mat. I had no aspirations whatsoever of ever teaching. I just didn't want to be on somebody else's schedule. So,
I understand.
and I finished the first class. I realized I loved it. I realized for me, yoga was a gift.
Mm,
And I was sharing a gift. I wasn't teaching people. I was sharing this amazing gift. And so within I guess within a month, I was offered 2 job offers.
oh wow.
So I was like, all right, well, I guess the, universe is trying to tell me something. And I started taking more teacher training classes as I was then, now teaching. And one of the section of classes they were offering was for PTSD. It was for active duty and retired military. And I thought, well,
Mm,
I live right outside of a military post. My husband was active duty. My community had a huge uh, retired and active duty, segment of military. And I was like, I should take this home and be of service to my community. I was about halfway through the first day, and I was like, oh boy, oh boy. This person I have to work out is like right here.
wow.
And I realized how PTSD had like literally crawled into the nooks and crannies of my life and was holding me back in ways I never even imagined. And I was doing things because I just thought that that's the way you did them. And I then came to realize it was PTSD that was really dictating it when they were coping mechanisms or what have you. And
Wow.
so it became a journey of self-discovery and self-recovery, and then along the way I was able to start bringing other people with me and helping them, and it just kind of evolved to this point. I got to work with veterans, both active duty and retired. Loved it.
Yeah.
And then I realized one night while I was in my private studio space, I looked around the room and I was surrounded by women who were all like me. They were all there for the same reason. And I got to watch many of them have shifts on the mat. And I was like,
Mhm.
this is what fills my soul. And this is where I want to be. I want to be with women who are like me. And
Wow.
so here I am.
That is an amazing story. And the fact that you got that revelation while you were actually taking yoga class is amazing. That speaks volumes for what you even do here. So I think that's awesome. So with that, so we were talking about yoga and we were talking about yoga therapy. And I think I actually saw this on something that you sent me, and I was like, "Wait, what is the difference between yoga and yoga therapy?" I didn't know. So this is a great question. I'll learn too. What is the difference?
Well, if you look at yoga as a big pie,
Hmm.
and you split the pie in half, and on one side you have fitness-based yoga. And this is really yummy stuff. Ashtanga and Bikram and co-ed naked hot yoga and aerial yoga and, all kinds of fun stuff. And you're the focus is probably more on fitness. Yes, there's a zenness to it, if you will, and yes, shifts can happen on the mat. However, it's more physical based than it would be anything else. Then on the other side of the pie, we have therapy. And here we really work with a specific group of people. So you have, for instance, yoga for cardiac rehab, yoga for cancer, yoga for MS, yoga for Parkinson's, arthritis, you
Wow.
name it. And so what we're specifically trained to work with folks who have an issue, and we help them bridge the gap, manage symptoms, things like that, maybe become more mobile. And so we're specifically trained to do that. I just happen to work with PTSD.
Wow. Okay. And I didn't even know that they had yoga for those other reasons. I'm like, wow. And I think we do. We do. I know I've generally heard like, oh, yoga can make you feel more centered. It can make you feel, more, just like you say, more relaxed, more all of that. But yeah, I guess I see the difference there, um, with what you're working with, because trauma is not an easy thing. Like folks really go deep places when they're going through trauma. So I can see how that's a little more involved. Okay, so I think I understand that a little better. So how does and I understand that, but can you get a little more specific about how the yoga is actually helping them with the trauma? Like what are they actually getting when they're in yoga that's helping them with the trauma?
There's some really specific points. Um, when you are dealing with trauma, a lot of folks are either very anxious, and so they're living in the future. They're worried about everything else that's going to possibly happen. Or they're working with depression. They're working with what happened behind them in the past. However, they're not in the present.
Mm,
Well, if you're on a mat, if you're not present, you're going to fall over. And so being on a mat really forces them to be present. So that's a beautiful thing. It might be the only hour during the day that they are present.
wow. Mm,
Now, yoga actually means to yoke. And what we're doing is yoking, bringing together the brain and the body. And that happens in any class, no matter where you're at. However, for us, it takes a little bit more of a turn. Um, when you have PTSD or any trauma, your brain and your body stop talking to one another.
mm,
And that's why you hear these stories of like moms lifting cars off their babies and stuff. They have, incredible strength or what have you, or um, And that's because the brain and the body aren't talking. The body's just doing. Well, that happens most of the time with people with PTSD. So we're able to actually bring the brain and the body back online together. They start talking to one another. And we can do that through the yoga therapy.
Wow, this is good stuff. Okay. That okay, so I don't know. This is just amazing me because I'm like, I I I hear you. I get what you're saying. But your mind and your body actually are on different paths. Like they're just not together anymore.
So let me
That's
ask you something. Okay, so let me ask you, have you ever seen two dogs fight?
I have.
Okay, and after they're done fighting and they're walking away, what have you seen them do?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Have you ever seen them
To
shake?
lick their wounds. Oh,
Right?
yeah, I have seen that.
Okay,
So
so
what
that's
is
important. That's important. So, for our purposes, we're going to talk about two different brains. We have the upper echelon brain, and this is where you do, math equations and your grocery list and, how do you find your driveway every day and, all of your critical thinking kind of stuff. This is also where your emotional regulation happens up in the upper echelon brain. We also have what they call the reptilian brain. And in this is a very, they consider it an old part of your brain. And this handles your breathing, your blinking, letting you know to go to the bathroom, like things you don't think about. It
mm-hmm.
also contains your fight, flight, freeze, fawn mechanism. So you go into trauma. Your body then leaves the upper echelon brain and it goes into the reptilian brain. And it just does what it needs to do. Again, your brain is really not doing anything. It is your body doing things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, after a traumatic episode, you shake just like a dog. I hate to break it to us, but like we're animals. Just like the
Okay.
dogs, just like dogs, we gotta shake. If that shaking mechanism doesn't happen, or we don't let it happen, well, then we get stuck. And that central nervous system is malfunctioning. It gets stuck. And we're
Mm-hmm.
stuck in the reptilian brain.
Wow. So we're just living, just going on this
And the
what they
brain
call
is
it autopilot. That's what I call it, autopilot.
exactly, exactly. And the brain, but the important thing is our emotional regulation is up in that upper echelon brain.
Mm.
And that's why you see folks with PTSD, they're always quite emotional. Well, yeah, they can't regulate it.
Wow.
They can't tap into that part of the brain.
Oh, okay. This this is so fascinating to me. I'm like, wow.
So now with the yoga therapy, we know that this trauma is literally trapped in our cells, in our body, on a cellular level. We also know that there's certain muscle groups that hold more than others. So we're able to actually work those muscle groups to exhaustion.
Mm.
And have you ever worked out and you felt like maybe your thighs quiver? Yeah,
Yes.
that's how we get those muscle groups. We get them to quiver. And that mimics that resetting mechanism.
Mm.
And the more we
Okay.
do that, the more and more we get them up back into that upper echelon brain.
Wow, this is very fascinating. I find this very fascinating. And this makes me want to sign up for the nearest yoga class.
Well, now, but
Apparently one
remember,
specific.
yeah, it's got to be specific. I mean, you're not probably gonna not get this in every class. You have to find something that meets your needs. And
Mm.
that's what's so vitally important. You can walk into your neighbor corner, you know, um, yoga studio, but you're probably not going to get this. You need to find someone specifically who is trained to do this. It's all very science. I hate to burst everybody's bubble. Yoga is all science.
Mm. Yeah, but it's science that ends up affecting and helping your physical body. Well, I guess all science does. for the most part, right?
Yeah, but everybody thinks that it's kind of voodoo and, smoke and mirrors and patchouli and, um, I mean, but it's
No, I
not.
get it. I
It's
get it.
not. It's actually all yoga is science-based. But this is just even
Yeah.
more so.
And this is the same reaction that and don't you do something with meditation as well? Because I was going to say this is the same reaction that I get from people whenever I talk about meditation and like mindfulness and things like that. But I really feel like it's not all of that like woo woo whatever, but it's more so it really is like that centering yourself. Sometimes just getting quiet and just listening. And people, have said, oh, I've heard the Lord talk to me. People said, oh, I came up with great ideas when I was doing this, like all sorts of things. And I think that gives you a moment with yourself. I don't think we realize how much time we spend in our day that we're not really dialed into ourselves. So,
Well, do you know why yoga was actually created?
no, so tell us that. I'm learning a lot today. Okay.
Yoga was created to settle the body so it could sit in meditation.
There you go.
However, most people, and myself included, I find that yoga is a form of moving meditation. And sometimes I'll be on my mat and I'm there. I'm dialed in. I mean, I am nowhere else but my mat. And all of a sudden, a solution to something that I might have been thinking about, and it could have been last week, all of a sudden, bing, and I'm like, where did that come from? But it's brilliant, you know. It's amazing to me how that happens, and I find more answers on my mat than I think I do anywhere else.
Okay. Well, I'm sold. And so there we go. Um, so okay, so all of this is really very fascinating. Is it anyone that like should not be doing yoga or like who this is because you talked about us like several different kinds of yoga for cardiac patients and different situations. So I guess is it more so you just need to find the right kind, or is it maybe people who shouldn't be doing yoga? Like, is anyone excluded?
Well, I think the only folks that would be excluded would be anybody without a heartbeat.
Well, there you go. I
Um,
don't think we're gonna find anybody walking around like that.
you never know. I mean, but just saying, a heartbeat would probably be your best bet. Obviously, talk with your doctor. It's modern Western medicine is sometimes at odds with what we do. Um, Obviously, talking with your doctor before you start with any kind of physical, activity is best. Um, and then finding who meets your needs. You're not going to go see your general practitioner if you need open heart surgery.
Mm, mm-hmm.
You're not going to go see your dentist if you need braces. You're going to go see an orthodontist. You need a specialist, and really finding someone who meets your needs. And so, not only is that important with yoga, but it's also important with your talk therapy. If you are someone like me, going to see a family counselor or a marriage therapist or what have you, they're great people and they're very educated in what they do. However, they might not be the best people to meet your needs.
Mm,
When I was raped for the first time I was 18, I did what everybody else does. I went to talk therapy. And it was great, except for the fact that I had to keep going back
mm,
over the years and going back and going back. And I was talking about the same stuff again and again and again. And I was really finding it very difficult to find closure. My last therapist, I sought out someone who deals specifically and only with sexual trauma. Now, it was a gentleman. I had never talked with a gentleman about this before. And I was kind of like, I don't know how this is going to go. But I figured, well, you know what? I've never done it before. I'm going to give it a try. I can always walk out and never go back. Um, and frankly, I did more work and more progress with that one man because of his knowledge and experience than I did with all of the other therapists before him.
Wow. Mm,
So, finding people who meet your needs to be part of your healing team is so vitally important.
yeah. Yeah, it's that having that team, and we talk about it for like business stuff. Oh, you need the right team, but it's definitely for I mean, how much more important is it to have the right people dealing with your physical, mental, emotional well-being. So,
Absolutely. If you have cancer, you have a team of doctors dedicated to a whole host of issues that you have. Well, yeah, you got to reset your central nervous system. And guess what? That's going to take a team.
mm, yeah, great point. Great point. Wow. So, and you mentioned this, you were talking about how you had to go repeatedly, go back to the therapist and everything. So, when you're doing yoga, I mean, do you kind of learn how to deal with it on your own, or do you have to, how long does it kind of take for you to maybe become a little more self-sufficient?
Well, the yoga therapy piece is a part of the puzzle. There's
Mhm.
not one silver bullet that's going to heal you. It takes several different pieces and parts, and you have to kind of figure them out on your own. I mean, unfortunately, if you have cancer, you get a team of people already around you, and boom, 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 it's done, and you're off to the races. When it's about PTSD, you kind of have to pick and choose and figure out your own healing journey and plan. And yoga therapy should be a part of it because we have to move this trauma out of your body. It's so vitally important, as well as talk therapy. So I won't say that talk therapy is the one thing you should do or yoga therapy is the one thing you should do. You should be doing both because you never know when you're on a mat you're in the middle of something and all of a sudden, boom, there's a
Mm.
download of information that you really need to take off your mat and take to your talk therapist and work through. You know,
Wow.
it's all, maybe you need meds. Meds are okay. I'm on meds, better living through chemistry. It's all good. That's part of my healing treatment. And
Mm.
so you really just have to figure out is it massage therapy? Do you need the extra touch? You know, um, there's all kinds of different things, energy work. Um, but it's all finding out what works best for you.
So basically, it's what we were kind of talking about is everybody is going to have their own personal journey, and it's going to be whatever you need, whatever you need. But yeah, I can definitely see the benefits of the yoga therapy, um, for trauma. Definitely. Okay, so this has been this has been really good. I didn't really know what to expect today, but I was really excited to kind of get into it. So now you offer these classes. What I was interested to know is, do you do like online? How are you offering your classes, or do you do one on one? Like, what do you do?
Yes, 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 and yes.
Yes, yes,
I
okay.
so I live in Manhattan, Kansas, where the livestock outnumber the people, and the cows just aren't digging the yoga. The bison like it.
And how do you know this? I
Don't
don't
ask.
want to know.
Let's just not even go there. But anywho, so no, I am completely online, and
Okay.
I do one-on-ones, and I'm also between now and the end of the year, there will be a membership launching for women who are just like me, sexually traumatized. We've got rape, assault, domestic violence, incest, molestation,
Uh,
excuse me, not murder. But whatever. Um, and there's what I noticed. After I was raped at 18 and then again 6.5 years ago, I really looked around and I was like, okay, what would I want? And I knew I wanted to do the yoga therapy because I knew it was important. And I knew that the education background was important because as I was sitting there in my classes and I was learning, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I do that. Oh, that's why I do that. Oh.
Mm.
And then when I saw myself doing whatever, I was like, wait a minute, I know why I'm doing that.
Wow.
Well, let's back this up a little bit. And it gave me the opportunity to make choices. I didn't have to react that way. I could choose how I could respond.
Wow.
And so I think the education is really important. You know, if you break your arm, I mean, what? You're probably in middle school, and you're going to go to the hospital. You're going to get a X-ray. You're going to get a cast, and you're going to see a doctor. 6 weeks later, the cast comes off, and your arm is healed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, nobody's teaching about what happens when your central nervous system goes offline.
Mm.
Nobody's teaching how to reset your central nervous system. We all have one. So I really feel like the education part is really important. And then the last part is community. If you look at, groups like AA, NA, even Weight Watchers, what's
Mm-hmm.
the big thing? It's the community. That's what keeps you accountable. That's what supports you. That's what gets you through. And there is no community for us.
Wow.
And so that's what I'm creating. Our membership will have all of that.
Okay. Well, that's amazing. So now, will you have classes? I mean, for people who are maybe just experiencing other trauma, or is it going to be this is going to be specifically for? Um,
This is specifically for women who have been sexually traumatized. However, I will be doing one-on-ones for anyone else who has generalized trauma or whatever.
okay, awesome. Well, if you guys need this kind of help in your life, which a lot of us do, honestly, um, there are a lot of people that I have learned through kind of networking and also doing this show as well. But there are so many people who are kind of hiding sexual assault trauma, especially in the form of course, molestation or incest. So that's a big one, and so people are trying to come to terms with that, but it is so many more people dealing with that than like I had ever thought, which is it's sad, but this is the world we live in. But to be able to have a way to you know work with that, deal with it, and kind of work on restoring the balance is amazing. So thank you for what you are doing,
I thank
honestly.
you. Well,
Yeah.
statistics say that 1 in every 4 women have been sexually assaulted, traumatized, what have you. We
Mm.
actually think that number is 1 out of every 2 because of underreporting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Isn't that just that's that's mind blowing. But I think it really gives you an idea of you know how many people really could use this kind of help. So wow, 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 wow. I learned so much today. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this kind of lesson today. So thank you. So I can
Well,
I
thank
can see
you.
how the education piece comes in because I really did learn a lot. I did not know all of this. So thank you for being with us today. And I'm just gonna start throwing up your oops.
TraumaHealingYoga.com. Yes,
Yep.
that is
There's your
me.
email,
Yep,
website.
that is
Yes.
me. Yeah.
And you're even on Instagram and Facebook, which I love.
I am. I'm kind of like a bad penny when it comes to social media. Trauma Healing Yoga, you can pretty much find me, but I'm not groovy. I'm not on Snapchat or TikTok. I'm not. I am not that groovy.
I think we're using the word groovy is telling folks. But yes, I understand. I am not really on TikTok. I have a TikTok. I'm not on there, but yeah, I certainly understand that. So you guys,
I'm on Snapchat, and all I do is talk to my niece, and, I'm like, "Oh, what's this button do? Oh, I'll send that," and she's like, "Aunt Nissa, really?" So, I mean, yeah, I'm a dinosaur, what can I tell you? But, you can find me, like, on Pinterest and LinkedIn and, um,
okay.
like, my website. And in fact, at my website, there is a free downloadable body scan meditation, and if you like to sleep, um, this is wonderful. It's very calming, or I just bore you to death. One of the two. You'll fall asleep, guaranteed.
Okay, well, I'll go there tonight. Thank you. Oh, that's awesome. I love a freebie. So you guys, there's a freebie on her website. So go and check that out. Thank you so much. This half hour or so went by super quick, but I learned so much. Thank you.
Well,
For
thank you. Thanks for having me on. I had a great time.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Everybody go check again her website out, her Instagram, Facebook, and definitely email her if you could use this kind of healing. And I think a lot of us could. So you guys check that out. All right. Thank you, Anissa, for being with me. This has been a really great show. Thank you
Thank
so
you so much.
much.
I appreciate it.
All right. And that is another great show, you guys. Oh my gosh, so much good information. I learned a lot. I learned a lot. Um, so, you guys check her out. There again is her website. Uh, Amazing. Uh, so, until next time, I'm sorry, I'm just dumbfounded at how much I learned today. So, until next time, you guys take good care of each other, take good care of yourself, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks on October 28th for our next show. So be sure to join us because we have another amazing guest coming up every second and fourth Friday, you guys. Share this episode out because some really great information came out of today's show. Thank you to my guest again. And until next time, you guys continue to stay boss.